And with us today is the Motor City Madman, Ted Nugent, because this isn't your typical political show. We like to have a little bit more fun. We like to have a little bit more discourse that you probably wouldn't get on cable news. And Ted has done us the incredible favor of dressing up incredibly well. Ted, I love that shirt. Is that Versace?
Well, let me tell you, Don, I'm a rancher, I'm a farmer, I'm a hunter, I'm a fisherman, I'm a trapper, and I got 3 tired dogs. Happy, Sadie, and Coker are completely worn out from an average day celebrating the ultimate American, Texas, freedom, land stewardship, conservation dream. So this is it. This is all you get. This is 100% Uncle Ted.
You know what? And I love that because that's sort of how we know each other, actually. I mean, we know each other through the outdoors and some of the initiatives that we've taken as conservationists. I mean, why don't you talk a little bit about that? I know you're working on a bunch of stuff, sort of, gathering up outdoorsmen. It was interesting. One of the things I'd learned on 2016 and really when we started talking was about that. I mean, because obviously, you're huge with the NRA. And so am I as a shooter. We're both also big and avid hunters and sportsmen and want to pass on that incredible American tradition. But I was always surprised to find out that there's not much overlap between those two worlds. And so sort of motivating hunters and the 2A crowd to get together and realize that we probably have much more in common than we do apart has been a big part of some of the things that you're trying to do. Why don't you talk about it a little bit?
Well, I was born in Detroit, Don, in 1948, when it was known universally around the world as the arsenal of democracy. I mean, where else could a free man want to be born after defeating the evil Nazis and Japanese punks than in the arsenal of democracy? So that work ethic, that pragmatism, that utilitarian man in the arena, taking risk and sacrificing to be in the asset column for your family. That was not just in the Industrial Revolution of Detroit that I was born in. It was also in the musical revolution of Motown that I was born in. Hallelujah. But most emphatically, the definition of rugged individualism, self-sufficiency, conservation, the wise use of our gifts from God as an independent being, taking good care of yourself so you can provide for your family. It was most obvious in our hunting lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So even though Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Little Richard invented this incredible, delirious soundtrack for freedom, that work ethic that my dad disciplined my brothers and sister and I was most enjoyable. Sometimes it wasn't enjoyable because he made us work so hard. But in hunting camp, you realize if you gathered wood, you could be warm. If you went to the stream and got water, you could cook. If you shot that squirrel or grouse and you learned to revere it, not just respect it, but revere it as the protein and the energy source of life itself, that hunting lifestyle really steered me on a true north compass setting, which I know it's being redundant to guys like you, but to focus on the heartbreak of that superior rugged individualism and self-sufficiency. Unfortunately, in the world of politics, which an experiment in self-government is politics, where we the people are supposed to engage, I am heartbroken that the hunting community, the licensed hunting families of this country have not participated responsibly.
And that's a good point.
For their beliefs.
Because I've said it 100 times. And, I've done this where it's, go to hunting camps. And again, it's sort of the great equalizer, right? I mean, we come from such different backgrounds, but around the campfire, you are one and the same with everyone else in there. It sort of puts everything else by the wayside. And it's just about those experiences. But it's sort of an interesting thing to see. The two things I've heard were sort of, well, A, hunters aren't, environmental. They don't care about those kind of things. And I think there's nothing further from the truth. And secondly,
absolutely,
what I've seen is the sort of the hunter conservative, well, I don't want to mix sort of, politics with hunting and my passion. And I think that's also a problem because while I understand the mentality, the other side's mentality is literally to take away your passion, to take away your rights. And we're seeing that going on right now in America. I mean, you're seeing the left states and their governors in a massive power grab, and they don't seem too apt to want to give back that power. ever. So, I mean, talk a little bit about that, your thoughts on it, and then again, how probably hunters are, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest conservationists we've known. I mean, the reason America has its open lands and its public lands and its national parks all started out because of hunters, the original conservationists.
Well, the definition of conservation is the wise use. And I think I've been on a holy war, a battle cry for the last 50 some years because I was attacked and such hate and dishonesty was leveled at me because I murdered innocent animals. I guess they had never heard of barbecue before. But the perfection of utilizing and respecting these renewable wildlife resources is why Lake Erie doesn't catch on fire anymore. Lake Erie used to spontaneously combust when the Industrial Revolution was running amok. God bless the Industrial Revolution, but we had some upgrade that was needed in how responsible we were with the foundries and the production of all these goods and services. So it was the sportsmen, it was the hunters, the duck hunters, the trappers, the fishermen that sounded the alarm when we found out who the polluters were, and a great celebration. Now, Lake Erie doesn't catch fire anymore. It's the #1 walleye and smallmouth bass fishery on planet Earth. So when you say conservation, air, soil, water quality is what we finance. It's what we manage. It's the sound science. So not only can we get some venison out of the deal, but the endangered species and the songbirds and the non-game and people thrive because wildlife habitat brings us quality of life.
Well, and one of the things they don't talk about, because we've seen it certainly in Florida with $1 billion investment into the Everglades from the Trump administration. What happens, in your neck of the woods, for Wisconsin, for Michigan, for all of the Great Lakes region, I think they did $750 million, to fix up that watershed, to shore up those things, to better them environmentally for sportsmen and for everyone, frankly, to enjoy. But if the Trump administration does something like that, even though it's totally unprecedented, even though it's 10x the amount any prior administration did, crickets, no one says anything. And so it's so great. I love seeing guys like you who will be out there, who will speak the facts, who will talk to them, because even talking to sportsmen, well, what have you done? I go, wait a minute, this administration has opened up more public lands for sportsmen, for sportswomen, for fishermen, for every aspect of this, and for just recreational use than any prior administration since Roosevelt. And yet no one talks about those things. So I know you're working on a couple initiatives like that to really bring the facts to those people who are buying hunting license, fishing licenses, registering them to vote. Tell me about it.
Well, I emphasize it all the time. We've had a top-rated hunting show, conservation program on Outdoor Channel for 31 years now. Started out on public television, where we broke all the fundraising records with Uncle Ted shooting hogs with my bow and arrow and showing where the liver and the heart can be cooked and sauteed with garlic and butter. It was really controversial at the time. I don't know why food is controversial, especially organic, renewable, natural food. But eventually we got on the Outdoor Channel, and I've always celebrated, especially today, Don, with this heartbreaking pandemic, even though the reaction is worse than the virus itself. What we're experiencing is more and more people are realizing what I've always celebrated and promoted: the healing powers of nature,
100%.
The soul cleansing experience, not just around the hunting campfire, but in the kayak, catching some fish for dinner, or planting a food plot for wildlife, or the bird feeders that everybody celebrates when they get that soothing aura of the bird song and just witnessing being part of wildlife. So we've created a huntthevote.org, which I believe, Don, is the battle cry for 2020, so that we get God, family, country, Constitution, freedom back. Huntthevote.org is a group of people who realize that the conservation families, maybe it's because it's in November and everybody's in a tree stand that week, but we have not been a force to reckon with when it comes to voting the traditional values that we so believe in. So huntthevote.org is trying to galvanize that conservative voting army to vote their beliefs: God, family, country, freedom, the outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think we're really onto something here because they got spoiled. I think everybody gets spoiled because the worst day in America is still so wonderful that you don't think you have to earn it or fight for it. But
Correct.
voting is how you earn and fight for the American dream. And I think it's catching on.
I think it's an incredible idea, and you're 100% right. I mean, when people start seeing those rights slip away, you start seeing them get more active. That's what we've seen over the last few weeks, right? People are, oh, wait a second. We sort of take our freedoms for granted. We take those things for granted. And I think, especially for the outdoors community, you show up and vote those values, guess what? People will start listening. That's the way to get politicians to listen. So it's sort of interesting because I think you touched on so many things that, I like and love, frankly. I'm an outdoorsman, shooter, hunter, and not just, I do one weekend a year to talk about it at a cocktail party for the next, 2 years. This is the way I choose to live my life when I'm not doing my day job. So, what do you think about, let's transition to Michigan a little bit, because I'm seeing some of the things I'm hearing from my friends in Michigan. Like, if you're a resident of Michigan, you can't go to like your cabin in the Upper Peninsula, which is such a big part of the tradition there. The governor has banned fishing and boating.
Watercraft, including boating, have been banned under Michigan's revised stay-at-home order. This coming after the Michigan Department of Natural Resources saw heavy use of boat launches across the state.
I mean, I can't think of, in a pandemic, assuming that people have no need to lock themselves in a basement, you can go out and be on a boat socially distanced from everyone else and go fishing past that time. Do something great with your family and kids, all the things that I've gotten my kids into. But the governor there has said you can't do any of those things. Now, people from out of state can go up to their cabins in Michigan. But if you're a citizen of the state, I mean, what the hell is going on there, Ted?
Boy, you're talking to the right guy, because I am such a proud Michiganian.
I had a feeling you would have an opinion on this one. Yeah.
Well, I won't even express my opinion, but I will share the facts and the statistics. I am doing this communication, our little electronic campfire here, Don, from the freedom-drenched environs of Texas. I've been a Texan for 18 years now. We left Michigan because of a health condition. We had to be treated in Texas after being exposed to a terrible black mold. But I was watching freedoms and individual liberties get chipped away with in Michigan. Quite honestly, everything I do when I get up in the morning in Texas, I'm not exaggerating. It's all against the law in Michigan. So I'm fighting every day to get that spirit of that arsenal of democracy, work ethic, rugged individualism, that risk-taking entrepreneurial spirit that is alive and well in Michigan. And you see my real Michiganiac blood brothers when they go to the Capitol in Lansing and protest. And this great hair salon gal that was incarcerated by a power-abusing judge shows the difference between Michigan and Texas when our great Attorney General Ken Paxton, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and Greg Abbott, our great governor, intervened and set her free.
These people who have spent their life building up a business and being told to shut it down and lose every penny they have, and then if they don't follow every little fine point of all the rules, they suddenly are subject to arrest. That is wrong. And that's why I issued another executive order today saying that instead of Texas, no one could be put behind bars because they're not following an executive order.
Then she went to Michigan and helped Carl, the barber, who was being persecuted by just a glaringly corrupt, power-abusing administration under Governor Whitmer. And I campaigned and explained to my fellow Michiganiacs what those liberals were going to do in Michigan, and it has all come to fruition.
I didn't open for any political reasons at all.
No political reasons.
My hairstylists weren't able to feed their families. I was already a month late on my mortgage.
So again, it's heartbreaking, but I see resistance. I see, social uprising, and I'm real proud of my fellow Michiganiacs up there.
I mean, didn't even some of the sheriffs in Michigan basically say, hey, we're not going to enforce these sort of orders? And, again, no one's more pro-law enforcement than the Trump family and stuff like that. But, it's good to see these guys saying, hey, just because a governor says something doesn't mean it's constitutional. doesn't mean it's right. And so when you see those people sort of saying, no, we'll enforce real laws, but we're not going to enforce totalitarian, made-up laws by power-hungry politicians, which seems to be going there. And I mean, Michigan's really been one of the hotbeds of sort of the resistance of the shutdown because of things like that. And when I see a 75-year-old barber, get thrown in jail for, wanting to feed his family, and it's crazy to me. It's sad to see it. But again, it seems like we're seeing these things in these blue states that we're not seeing in the red states like Florida and Texas. If you look at the statistics on deaths, if you look at the mortality, if you look at the freedoms that are being pulled away from God-fearing American citizens, man, the juxtaposition between red and blue could not be more clear. I think guys like you and me who live and breathe this crap, we think about this stuff all day long, but I think it's going to be a really rude awakening to people, in these blue states when they see what's going on and they see that juxtaposed against states that actually still believe in freedom from the leadership at the top. But I do love seeing guys like the sheriff saying, no, not on our watch. We're not going to enforce unconstitutional laws.
Michigan's extended stay-at-home order, a controversial issue for many outdoorsmen.
People are pretty disappointed in the fact that they can't still go out by themselves and fish is a hard blow.
Marinas around Monroe County say thousands are usually docking their boats this time of year, but instead the docks sit empty. Bait and tackle shops are also concerned about the hit this is taking to their businesses, already hurting from the loss of canceled fishing tournaments and charter boats unable to work.
We had over 400 entrants that are now not coming into our store, not weighing their fish, not going to the lake and staying at the hotels and visiting these restaurants. It's affected all of us.
The previous order still allowed for boating, but the Michigan DNR reported heavy use of boat launches, noting that people who use motorized watercraft typically need secondary services, such as parts and gasoline, increasing contact with others.
Well, those are my Americans. The protesters and the civil disobedience is well-founded in constitutional law, logic, common sense, and the truth that these heroes of law enforcement, and Don, I was a sworn sheriff deputy first in 1983 in Michigan, and to this day, I continue that constitutional oath every 4 years. I know these heroes of law enforcement. They're standing up because they remember the words to that constitutional oath. And quite honestly, those are the heroes of today. And the ones that don't adhere to their constitutional oath, and they know who they are, and they feel guilty, and they're probably squirming right now, which is guilt, they should be ashamed of themselves, because there is law and order, and then there's unambiguous nonsense. And to enforce a law that someone can't buy seed for a garden, what planet could that be?
Yeah.
A law?
Can't buy an American flag?
Gardens as well. And, we have the landscaping, but gardens as well. Many of these garden companies sell what's needed for people to grow their own food, seeds, plants, vegetables. Can they sell these things for curbside pickup? What do you say to that?
We had to design the executive order so it was very clear that we don't want people leaving their homes unless they're going to pick up food or prescriptions, or they have a healthcare appointment. The fact of the matter is, going to Home Depot and picking up a bunch of garden supplies sounds like a fine idea when you're at home and you're looking at all of these projects you want to tackle. But the more people that are out, the more likely COVID-19 is going to continue to spread.
It's unbelievable. So you got the juxtaposition daddy here, because I was born in Detroit, but I've been a Texan for 18 years. And the difference in freedom and quality of life between the two states is dramatic. And for an old Detroit guy, it's heartbreaking. But again, the prognosis is getting better every day, because you're seeing the resistance from those heroes of law enforcement and those entrepreneurs and those working hard, playing hard families that are farmers and cops and teachers and veterans of World War II and veterans of Vietnam. And they're saying enough is enough. Gretchen Whitmer, you are abusing your power, and you're assuming authority that you don't have. So I think this is a great wake-up call in 2020.
Well, I think so. And obviously today in Michigan, you have, that flooding going on, terrible flooding, multiple dams breaking. So, I think if Gretchen Whitmer maybe focused a little bit more on the pandemic, a little bit more on Michigan's infrastructure, which I think we could also use as a great wake-up call nationally, that this is what we have to do to put Americans back to work, that we got to start the infrastructure plan that my father's been wanting to implement from day one, but the Democrats have resisted. It should be a priority. And maybe if Gretchen stopped running for, VP, stopped trying to be so desperately Biden's VP, she may do a better job in Michigan, which would then maybe justify her actually being a VP pick. But as of right now, I haven't seen anything that would lead any sensible politician on either side to say this is someone who we'd want to put in charge of just about anything. So, talk to me a little bit about the flooding, because you're more familiar, obviously, with Michigan and its infrastructure. But when I hear about 2 major dams breaking, the kind of flooding that's there, the jeopardy that's going to put our incredible first responders in as they're just doing what they do every day, suiting up to defend Americans, and save American lives. My heart just bleeds for those in Michigan right now, because on top of the pandemic, you have this mess. But again, I think if they focused a little bit more on infrastructure and a little less on encroaching on our liberties, maybe we wouldn't have this problem, Ted.
Hey, you're
at least one of them.
You're looking for logic here. I'll try to help you out because I know it's a rare bird these days. But boy, Don, you're talking again. I've not missed a hunting season in 71 years. This will be my 72nd opening day. And we always opened up the season in the National Forest in up north Michigan along the Tittabawassee River as we headed towards Gaylord and Grayling to visit with the great Fred Bear. Such great memories. So I know that region, and that those dams are breached. And there's tens of thousands. I believe the number now is tens of thousands of families have had to be evacuated. So I'm in touch with my buddies, my musical buddies up there, my hunting buddies up there. I have a heart and soul connection with the best people in America and the best people in Michigan. So our prayers are going out for them. But Don, before I finish that sentence, I want you to know that as we pray for people who are hurting during this pandemic, we're praying for the states that are being persecuted: California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Michigan. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. I want you to know that we pray for your family every day, because I can't tell you, from the guy at the feed mill and the hardware store and the guy doing my drywall and the guy that comes out and works my hay fields with me, they love your dad, and we pray for your dad and your family every day, because he represents the heart and soul of the best Americans who, again, that man in the arena, the risk-taking, sacrificing, getting up early, busting our ass to be in the asset column for family, community, country, and the environment. We pray for your family every day. Don't ever forget that, because he's doing God's work literally.
Well, I appreciate that, man. That honestly, that means the world to me, and I hear that from guys. But honestly, I like hearing it from guys like you, because you actually, are in touch with those real Americans. It's not just an act. It's not just a show. I've seen it, and I think you probably realize that I'm somewhat that way also, which is, I'm the son of a billionaire from New York. I don't pretend to be anything but where I spend my time, where I spend my, where I choose to spend my free time, tends to be more with regular guys in middle America than it does in New York City at the BS cocktail parties. So, maybe let's transition a little bit here. You have, for your entire career, and I can't believe you're 72 years old. I want whatever the hell you're doing. I want to lock that in right now. I would take that in a second, because your energy is just awesome. It's, let's call it Trump-like. But as someone who's been very vocal, but who's also in show business, let's talk about 2 things. Have you seen sort of the ramifications of being sort of a vocal conservative, in show business? And, then I'd like to talk a little bit about, getting the economy started back up. In your world, when you go on tour and, you're talking about a mass gathering type thing, listening to your shows, digitally will not be the same, as it is in this thing. Let's talk a little bit about both of those things and what it's been like for you. How does that work in Nashville, where, it's a country hub, which definitely leans more conservative, but the people at the top of the record label definitely ain't conservative.
Well, it is a heartbreak for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of just working hard, playing hard families. But musicians like myself are not immune to the hardships right now. We literally had to cancel the entire North American tour this year. The promoters across the country are rightfully fearful of such large gatherings. We haven't got the green light on such large concentrations like we have at our concerts. So with Jason Hartless on drums and Greg Smith on the bass guitar, the world's greatest rhythm section, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to go on tour. But just last weekend, I performed a couple of songs for a local charity here called Feeding Families, where we raised a lot of money to get food to our fellow Americans who need it, not to mention the Hunters for the Hungry programs, where we donate tons of venison for soup kitchens and homeless shelters around the country. But I'm still jamming my chops. I still rocking my guitar every day. In fact, I was just on the phone with Kid Rock, and he's got some killer new music that he wants the ultimate Motor City Madman Firestorm guitar licks on. So I think I'm going to head to Nashville. So the music is still alive and well, but the artists that, really, I haven't missed a tour, Don, since 1963. Wow. I've toured every summer. Back as a kid, I didn't do it quite as extensively as I have, since the late 1960s. But this will be the first year since 1963 that I won't literally take my music on the road with my killer band. So I'm not looking for any sympathy, because I promise I'll make it up next year. Plus I'll still record some killer new jams with my band here in Texas. Mm-hmm. But it is a hard line to go, because that's the life and blood of the Nugent Family Support Network. And it's my artistic, beast. I have to unleash the beast every summer. So I'm going to have to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and do it a little bit more locally and regionally. But I will get my licks in before the opening day of deer season.
Well, listen, we definitely need you to get that energy out. Otherwise, I'm going to feel really bad for Shemaine, your incredible wife, who puts up with all of that energy. But, so talk to me a little bit again also now about just, being a vocal conservative that's out there, in a field that's definitely not where that's not acceptable, where you're not allowed to be there. I mean, it's sort of interesting, like the amount of people I know. I mean, we brought up Nashville. So like, the amount of people I know in country music that are like, Don, I love everything about you guys. Man, if I could do free concerts for you guys, I would all day long, but my record label will, just cancel me. If I even said anything. I mean, what has that been like for you? Because you've just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm all in. I'm going to say what I want. I mean, whether that's as it relates to being an outdoorsman, a conservationist, a hunter, very vocal, one of the great advocates for the Second Amendment. And frankly, as a conservative advocate, and most importantly, really for our family, where you've just been, just incredible, and steadfast in that support, in saying, what you truly believe and not being influenced by the outrage mob, which does honestly affect many people who feel similarly to you, but don't quite have the guts to say it out loud, or, aren't willing to risk the downside.
Well, I will respect my A-list celebrity buddies who are absolutely spineless. They will not stand up for, I believe, the two most controversial issues in America, when you get right down to it, are hunting rights and Second Amendment rights. And I was first attacked for standing up. I didn't even realize I had to stand up. I was just celebrating a great weekend of aim small, miss small shooting fun with my dad and my brothers and sisters and my mom on the Tittabawassee River, the mystical flight of the arrow marksmanship. And when I talk about backstraps and eating venison around the campfire, some of these hippie rock and roll media people would just go nuts. I couldn't believe I murdered innocent animals. And I went, what the hell are you talking about? It's venison. It's delicious. It's food. It's organic. It's the best nutrition in the world. And so I literally had tours canceled. I had record contracts canceled. I had everybody in my team go, Ted, you might want to back it down. You're pissing a lot of people off with this celebrating firearms and self-defense.
Anybody that wants to disarm me can drop dead. Anybody that wants to make me unarmed and helpless, people that want to literally create the proven places where more innocents are killed, called gun-free zones, we're going to beat you. We're going to vote you out of office, or suck on my machine gun. You can take it whichever way you want.
I went, except firearms and self-defense, are two of the most perfect things in the world. Why would I want to back it down when I'm watching the enemy not just hating me for promoting it, but actually being effective in passing unconstitutional infringements on our Second Amendment rights? So I not only wouldn't back it down, I realized I had to turn up the heat. And by turning up the heat, Don, I can't tell you how humbled and how proud I am of getting the highest votes ever at the top votes, I think, right behind Charlton Heston on the board of directors of the National Rifle Association, the most important civil rights organization in the world, the right of self-defense. If you don't have a right to defend yourself, you don't have any rights at all. So I not only didn't back it down, I actually welcomed, if not cherished, the attacks by idiots who would be against the perfection of hunting and the perfection of self-defense. So I have probably lost. My manager did an analysis one time, and it's a lot of money.
Well, by the way, I've been in that same boat. When you're from New York City and hospitality, and you speak about being a vocal proponent of the Second Amendment, being a vocal sportsman, and honestly, for me, it was one of those things. It's like I am not capable of doing the typical. You see it from celebrities, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. I will never do it again. I will never follow my passion again to appease someone who's uneducated on the subject, knows nothing about it, could care less about you, your lifestyle, or any of the science behind it. Like I was like, I'm just not capable of doing that, so I'm going to fight back. And you're a fighter. So what do you think about those celebrities, though? And we see it. I mean, it happened to me a few times this week. Sort of, people who've sort of been forgotten by time, and sort of the way to be relevant again is to try to attack Trump and be part of the resistance. I'm trying to figure out what exactly they're resisting. Before the COVID-19 crisis brought to us by the wonderful communist Chinese government who did nothing about it and lied to us, we had the greatest economy America has recently, the greatest job numbers. I'm saying, the guy that did that once is the guy that can do it again, not the 50-year Washington bureaucrat, who doesn't remember where he is most of the time. But I digress. But, what do you think about, those sort of celebutants who get out there and it's like, you know what? I got to sell a book. Time to hate on Trump. I can't come up with a reason. I have no actual facts to back up my statement. I'm just going to say it because it's so much easier to say that, to hate on Trump, to hate on the family, to hate on guys like me and you, than it is to actually stand up for what you believe in.
Well, there's a lot of that. I call it the manifestation of a cultural deprivation, where they not only pretend that the foundation of this country was based on those God-given individual constitutionally guaranteed rights, but they literally forget that it says shall not be infringed. And I don't know what motivates them, because I'm a guy that I have to get up early. I have to work hard. I like working up a sweat. I like being creative and productive. I use the term asset column. Everybody I know, my band, my crew, my kids, my grandkids, my brother, my sister, my management, my incredible wife, Shemaine, my neighbors, everybody I know busts their ass to be in the asset column so that they are productive. And all those people realize that why we voted for your dad is because he not only was not status quo, he was ready to crush the status quo, because every ailment that America's experienced, the world is experiencing, is a direct result of the status quo traditional political machine. Your dad came in with a crowbar. I always tell everybody that Donald Trump is the closest you'll ever get to Ted Nugent in politics. But I got to tell you, the time I've spent with your dad, I consider myself a high energy guy. Boy, have I learned something from your dad. I don't know where he gets it, but that's my point. I'm not being facetious. He's on a mission from God. This is divine intervention. We needed a status quo crusher, and I can't think of anybody except Donald J. Trump that could have pulled it off with such effectiveness, such absolutism, and shall I say, aplomb. He came in, when he came down that escalator, he's still grinning all these years later. And I think we can all learn lessons from your dad, and we need to share it with I'm telling you, my hunting buddies are the biggest celebrities on the planet. I won't mention their names because I respect their decision to cower. But they send me pictures with their elk and their deer and their big old wild boar, and they say, "Don't show anybody. I can't let anybody see this." You spineless wimp. Yeah, this is a chance for you to promote something you believe in against the people who want to take it away. If you're on the wall of the Alamo, you need to shoot Santa Anna's men. You can't just have tea and crumpets back there. So I've always identified the culture war before the term became known. Yeah. There was no colloquialism culture war when I started fighting the anti-gunners and anti-hunters in 1964, 1965. But now we're in a full-on culture war, worse today than ever. And I think if we can get the hunting world to vote God, family, and country at huntthevote.org. Huntthevote.org is going to be our armory to get registered and to the voting booth in November, people who believe in God, family, and country by their lifestyle, and they need to vote God, family, and country, and then we will be back on our way.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I love what you're doing. I love your energy. I love everything about you. You're a great American, a great American family. The only one better may be Shemaine. She's incredible, and again, she puts up with you. Which, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's sort of like without question. But I just want to really thank you for taking the time, for speaking your mind as you always do. We need more like you, Ted. Thank you very much, man. You're a great American. Good having you on, and everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Triggered. We look forward to seeing you next week or the week after. We're going to keep it going because we keep getting comments. People like this stuff, Ted. So we'll have a little bit more fun, and we'll see you all soon.
Truth, logic, and common sense. It's the battle cry.
We will make America great again.